The stranger who saved me turned out to be the ex I tried to kill. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't swim. I don't sail. I don't even like the ocean. And yet here I am, shivering in a boat the size of a coffin, in the middle of the sea, during the worst storm I've seen in years. The wind stings my face. Rain lashes sideways, soaking through my cloak and shirt and skin. Waves slam against the hull like fists. I can barely see 2 feet in front of me. But I'm still here. Because I can't stop feeling it. This pull. Like the sea knows me. Like it's been trying to say something I can't hear. I told Dario I needed storm kelp for potions. That I'd be careful. That I'd be back before dawn. I even pretended I believed it myself. But the truth is, I've been dreaming of water. Cold, black water. And a voice I don't remember. A song with no words. It's been haunting me every night. And now being here, it doesn't make it stop. It makes it worse. The sea feels familiar. I don't understand how that's possible. But I feel it in my ribs, like grief. Then something changes. The wind goes silent, just gone. The rain slows, the air thickens. It's like the world is waiting. Then the boat tips, violently. I don't have any time to react, just a flash of the sky turning over, before the waves hit me like a wall. I go under. It's instant and brutal. The water crashes into my chest. My face cold slams into every nerve. I can't breathe. Can't scream. I twist, panic. I don't know which way was up. The ocean is endless. My limbs are heavy. My lungs are burning. My heart is hammering so loud I can hear it. And then a flicker of light. Something moving fast. I catch a glimpse. A shape cutting through the dark. Pale skin. Silver eyes. I think I'm imagining it. Until he touches me. Strong hands warp around my waist and pull me close. He's not wearing anything. Just skin and water and magic. His hair floats around his shoulders like seaweed, pale green under the moonlight. His chest against mine. And his eyes. God. I've never seen eyes like that. Silver, sharp, ancient. And they're locked onto mine. Like I'm the only thing that matters. He doesn't speak, doesn't smile, just holds me. Like he's done it before. Like he knows me. I should be terrified. I should fight. But all the fear goes quiet. Something in me recognizes him. And right before I pass out, before the world goes black, I reach for him. I don't know why. Only that it feels like coming home. A few hours later, I wake up to sunlight on wet stone and pain. My whole body aches, but it's my ankle that really screams when I try to move. I suck in a breath, groan, and blink against the light. The floor is cold beneath me. Rock. A cave? It smells like salt and seaweed. My clothes are still damp. There's sand on my hand. A fire flickers nearby. Someone must have built it, though I don't remember how I got here. And then, I see him, sitting just a few feet away, still watching. The man from the ocean! The silver-eyed stranger. He looks exactly the same as I remembered underwater. Bare chest, hair damp and curling at the ends. Legs fold beneath him, like he's perfectly comfortable in this half-wild place. But he doesn't say anything, not even hello. Just watches me with this strange, unblinking intensity. Like he's afraid I'll disappear if he looks away. I clear my throat. You saved me. No answer. I try again. What's your name? Still nothing. He tilts his head slightly, like he's listening, but nothing comes out of his mouth, not even a breath. I frown. You can't speak? His expression doesn't change, but somehow that tells me enough. He's a siren. I feel it. Not just from the eyes or the way he moves. Like the sea never left him, but from the weight of him. Like he's carrying old magic, heavy things. And me? I'm stuck here. I can barely stand, my ankle's twisted bad. Probably sprained. I'd need a walking stick, and 2 solid days of hiking to even think about getting home. So, I stay. In this cave. With him. The first day, we don't talk. Not that we could. He brings me seaweed and herbs. Soft moss to rest my ankle on. Starts the fire again when it goes out. Never leaves the cave for long. When I sleep that night, I dream of a boy standing on the rocks in the sea. Silver eyes. Mouth open, singing. I can't hear the song. Just the way it makes me feel. Like I've lost something huge. Like I used to be loved. I wake up with tears dried on my face, and my heart pounding like I'd ran a mile. He's still there, lying on the floor near me, arm under his head, watching the ceiling. He sleeps beside me every night after that. Not touching, not even close. Just near. Enough to make my chest hurt for a reason I don't understand. I keep dreaming every night. The sea, war, magic bursting from my hands. Sometimes him, singing for me. I don't even know this man. I don't even know his name. But every time I look at him, my throat gets tight, like I've forgotten something important. Like I miss him, before he's even gone. He doesn't speak, but he listens when I talk out loud to myself about the pain, the dreams, the quiet aches inside me. He watches like every word matters. On the 4th morning, I wake up shaking. Another dream. Another piece of something lost. I roll over, curled up, breath shallow. He comes closer. Doesn't touch me. Just sits near, like a shadow that knows when you need it. I look at him. Really look. The curve of his jaw, the way his hair falls into his eyes, the quiet in his posture, the storm behind his gaze. I feel like I know you, I whisper, and I don't know why. He blinks slow, like he wants to say me too. I reach for my pack and dig out my sketchbook, flip to an empty page. I start drawing without thinking, and when I'm done, it's his face. I stare at it, my fingers smudged with charcoal, my heart thudding. I've never drawn him before, but the lines came like memory, like muscle. He looks at the drawing, then looks at me, and something in me hurts. Not from the ankle, not from the cold, but from the weight of not knowing how I know him. I set the sketchbook aside, lay back down, close my eyes, and I pretend I don't feel like I'm falling in love with a ghost. A few days later, the dreams are getting louder. They used to be soft, just flashes, sounds, shapes in the dark. But now they come in color, with names I don't recognize, with feelings that don't belong to my life. Last night, I saw his hand holding mine, fingers laced, salt water dripping off his skin. We were standing on the edge of a cliff, kissing like the world was ending. And I remember thinking, I'd give everything for him. Even magic, even memory. I wake up gasping, hand clutching my chest. The fire is still glowing. He's sitting nearby, awake. Always awake. I meet his eyes, and for a second, I know him. My breath stutters. I sit up too fast, and wince at the ache in my ankle. Now almost healed. He tilts his head concerned, moves a little closer. I dreamed of you, I say softly. His throat works, like he's trying to speak, but no sound came out. I think I loved you, I say before I can stop myself. And his eyes go wide, like he'd been waiting years for me to remember. 2 days later, I walk again, barefoot on damp stone, finally strong enough to explore outside the cave. He follows, always at my side. I don't ask why, because I think I now know. He doesn't act like a stranger. He acts like someone who already knows me, who's just waiting for me to catch up. The more time I spend with him, the more pieces click into place. Not in full memories, but in feelings. I touch the ocean, and my hand aches. I see his shoulder and feel something tight in my chest. I hear the wind and remember shouting, arguing. And then, one night, I remember everything. It doesn't come slowly this time. It crashes. I see his face, younger, wilder. I see myself screaming at him, accusing him of betrayal. He's bleeding, holding my face, begging me to listen. And I don't. I cast the spell on myself, on the world. I made the whole world forget him. And he let me. Because the war was closing in. Because my own coven was turning on me. Because they would have killed me if they knew what we had. So he stays quiet. And I wiped us out. I wake up crying. He's right beside me again, eyes full of something old, sad, fierce. I remember, I whisper. And that's when I understand why he hasn't spoken. The spell didn't just take my memories. It took his voice. My hands shake. Gods, I whisper. You let it happen? He nods once. And it destroyed you. His eyes burn, but he doesn't look away. I reach for him, touch his face, and he leans into it like he was starving for it. I was wrong, I say. I was so freaking wrong. He closes his eyes, and I think maybe, for the first time in years, he let himself breathe. Flashback. 10 years ago, magic has always been divided. The land belonged to us, witches, sky watchers, spellbinders, born with starlight in our blood. We worked with the roots and the air and the moonlight. Quiet, deliberate magic, written in spellbooks and taught in covens. We protected the villages, guided the seasons, healed the sick, and bound the storms. The sea belonged to them, sirens, born of tide and tempest. Wild magic, sung, not spoken. It wasn't taught, it was inherited, through lullabies and longing. Their power was raw, emotional, drawn from the sound and desire, and dangerous. Too much emotion could drown our whole harbor. We stayed apart for centuries, not out of hate, but out of balance. Witches feared what sirens could awaken in them. Sirens hated how witches tried to bind everything with rules. How magics didn't mix well. Where ours was stable, theirs was chaos. Where there was feeling, ours was focus. Some tried to bridge the gap. Treaties, borders, quiet visits. But it never lasted, no matter how many words we signed. The truth was simple. Land and sea don't belong to each other. And neither do we. It started with a storm. I was 23, newly minted in the Northern Coven, assigned to protect a cliffside village from rogue weather and magical surges. A normal spot, simple work. And then, a merchant's son washed ashore half dead. Said he was beautiful in a way that felt unnatural. That when he opened his mouth, just to cough up water, the tide pulled back. I saw him, and I knew. Siren. I should have reported him. That was protocol. But something stopped me. Maybe it was in his silvery eyes. Maybe the way his silver eyes met mine. Maybe how he didn't beg, didn't speak. Just watched me. Like he was wanting to see if I was the kind of witch who would still choose mercy. I took him in. Kept him hidden. His name was Lance. He didn't speak much. Only when he needed to. His voice was soft, low, almost human. Until he sang. The first time I heard it, I forgot how to breathe. It was a song without words. It sounded like the ocean missing the moon. It made me cry. He looked at me, like he understood something I didn't yet know I was feeling. And I looked at him, like I'd never heard anything more dangerous, or more beautiful. A few months later, I don't know when exactly it shifted. Maybe it was the way he always leaned in a little too close when I read aloud. Maybe it was how I started making double portions without realizing. Or maybe it was that one afternoon, when he reached for a charm I was inscribing, and our hands touched, and the magic sparked. Not in a violent way, in a soft, dizzy, what was that kind of way. He looked at me like he was drowning, and I let him. Or maybe it was the night I saw him down by the tide pools, bathed in the moonlight, his legs gone, a silvery green tail glinting where they used to be. Beautiful, untouched, real. He looked up, and I swear I forgot every spell I ever learned. That night we kissed, and the second his mouth touched mine, the world tipped sideways. Everything I'd ever thought about control, about lines, about rules, gone. His magic bloomed under my skin. The power tangled in his breath. The air tasted like sea salt and summer lightning. We were never the same after that. I didn't stop with one kiss. We kept kissing. We kept touching. We started sharing. Dreams. Memories. Fears. I told him about my father. About the frostbite that nearly stole my hand. He told me how sirens pass on songs through generations. How some melodies are buried in their bones from birth. He started singing again, only for me. We wrote spells together, new ones, dangerous ones. He would hum, and I would shape the runes to match his rhythm. That kind of fusion. It shouldn't have been possible. Witches and sirens weren't supposed to mix, but we did. And our magic didn't break. It sang. We stopped going back to the ocean. I stopped sending reports to the coven. We built a life in that tiny ward house. Our days were sunlight and rosemary and laughter. Our nights were tangled limbs, soft moans. Whispered I love yous in languages no one else knew. We thought we could keep it quiet. We thought love was enough. But it wasn't just about us anymore. Because magic, like ours, it leaves a mark. The coven felt the shift. The Sea Council sensed the absence. A witch and a siren that powerful, disappearing from their roles. It wasn't just scandal. It was a threat. We didn't know we were the spark. But looking back now, we should have known. Love like that doesn't stay hidden. Not forever. Together, we were something new. But the world doesn't like new things. Lance's people felt the pull of his magic fading inland. Whispers started. Tensions rose. I got called back to headquarters. He was summoned by the Sea Council. They warned us. Stay apart. Keep the balance. We didn't listen. We met in secret for another whole year until the border treaty was broken by someone else. A siren child crossed into the forbidden tide pool. Got caught in a spell trap meant for monsters. She died screaming. The Sea Council blamed us. Said the trap was proof witches had been preparing for war. The coven blamed them. Said the child's death was manipulation, provoking a fight before the next trade negotiation. None of them knew about us, but our magic had already started weaving into fault lines. We were the fuse. A month later, the first strike came from the sea. A whirlpool opened at the edge of the coastal town, pulled half of the village into the depths before we could stop it. It wasn't sanctioned. It was an act of grief, of vengeance. The coven retaliated with a firestorm, and the war began. It wasn't clean, it wasn't fair. It was spells and songs and storms and blood. Lance begged me to leave, to run with him, to hide beneath the ocean, where they couldn't find us. But I was too proud, too afraid of being seen as a traitor. So I stayed. So I tried to calm things down from the inside. Tried to fix it. I thought Lance was doing the same, until the day I saw him at the front lines. It was a siren raid over the Coven's spell library. I was on defense. He was in the water, leading the charge, his hair tied back, his face unreadable. He saw me. I saw him. He turned away. The attack went through. Our archives burned. I couldn't breathe. He was supposed to love me. He was supposed to stay. I went home that night and shattered every mirror in my house. The next morning, I broke my bond with him. Or I thought I did. I didn't want to remember how much it hurt, so I made sure I couldn't. I crafted the spell from scratch, something forbidden, something ancient, something fueled by pain and blood. I used my own heart as the anchor. I wrote the runes in salt water and ash. I whispered his name until it had no meaning left. It wasn't just a memory wipe. It was an excision. Of him, of us, of every piece of me that still longed for the sound of his voice in the dark. I didn't just erase him from my mind. I erased him from the world. From records, from dreams, from spell books and sea charts, and even the stars. The magic reached into reality and unmade him, and I didn't know what I couldn't know. Was that he let me, that he came to me one late night, knelt at my feet, and sang the final note of the binding song himself, the one that cost him his voice, the one that made the spell work. He chose to vanish, to save me. And when I opened my eyes the next day, the sea was just water. I was just Rune, alone. Flashback ends. The next day, I remember him now. I remember the sound of his laughter, wild and free, and always half daring me to kiss him harder. I remembered the way he used to sing only when we were alone, the kind of songs that made the air shimmer. I remember the way he held my face, like I was a prayer and a curse all at once. And I remembered the end. The war. The way I saw him swimming away during the battle. The way the coven screamed traitor before I asked him why. I remember rage, the heartbreak, the silence that came after. I remember the spell. Gods, I remember choosing to forget him. To rip him from my heart and magic and memory. And I remember the look on his face when I did. The way he didn't fight it. The way he let me. But now that I remember it all, the ache is worse. Because something doesn't make sense. I see him now. Quiet, gentle, kneeling beside the fire, hair curling with the salt and ash, and I feel like in my chest, he didn't betray me. He never would have. So, what the hell did happen? If I saw him leave, then why do I still believe he stayed? There's a piece missing. A lie somewhere deep. Something I saw that wasn't real. Something someone wanted me to believe. But he can't tell me. His voice is still gone, and every time he tries to hum, just to comfort me, or maybe just out of habit, I see how much it hurts him, how the sound catches his throat, like broken glass. Tonight, I build the fire higher. The sea winds is colder than usual. I pull the blanket tighter around me and sit down beside him, closer than I have before. He doesn't flinch. He leans in. He presses his forehead to mine. And just like that, the ache ceases. Like even if I don't know the whole truth yet, he does, and he's still here, waiting for me to find it. Over 1 week later, the magic's wrong. It starts subtle, a shimmer in the corner of my vision, a tug behind my ribs when I touch the sea. Like something inside of me is off axis. Not broken, but no longer obeying. The dreams get sharper too. Not just feelings now, but details. Real, vivid, terrifying clarity. The spell wasn't clean. Of course it wasn't. No magic that violent. That final ever is. It tore something loose inside me that day I cast it. Now that he's back, now that I remember him, it's coming undone. And so am I. It happens the first time I tried to pick herbs again. A normal thing, a safe thing. Something I've done hundreds of times. But this time, when I reach down and touch a spring of bitter leaf, it ignites. Not just a smolder. Explodes! Fire bursts from my fingers. Not red, but white and blue. Hot and hungry. The plant turns to ash in seconds. I stumble back, fall into the rocks, heart slamming against my ribs. I stare at my hands, my palms glowing like embers. The magic pulses in my arms, angry and alive, and not listening to me anymore. He is beside me in seconds. He kneels, eyes wide, fingers hovering like he wants to help, but doesn't know how. And then his skin brushes mine, just barely, a gentle touch, and everything shatters. A wave of power rips out from me, blinding light, wind and salt crackling energy. It knocks us both to the ground. My head slams into the sand. My ears ring. And then, a sound. Rough. Raw. Him! A rasp. A broken note. A low kneeing cry that dies as fast as it forms. He gasps, clutching his throat, eyes wide in pain. Blood-stained fingers. He shakes. Oh, gods! I crawl towards him, touch his back. You made a sound! He nods once, slow, like he doesn't know whether to be relieved or afraid. We stared at each other. He tries to speak. The magic let him. For half a second, but it hurt him. And I can feel it now, how the magic is shifting between us. Feeling the bonds we buried, growing unstable with every memory that returns. Something ancient is awakening. And it's not just from inside me. Later that night, we don't sleep that night, not after the blood. I clean his hand, wrap his throat in a charmed cloth soaked in moonroot oil, even though I know it won't help. He sits beside the fire, silent as always. But this silence feels different, like he's bracing for something. And I feel it too. The wind's taste of old magic, metallic, sharp. Something's coming. I fall into a shallow doze just before dawn. And that's when they came. The coven. I don't hear them arrive. I feel them. A crack in the air, a pressure in my skull. The hairs on the back of my neck rise like static. Heart thudding. And over to the cave's mouth. They're already inside. 5 of them, shadow-wrapped in blood-colored robes, hoods up, faces pale, and still too familiar. One of them steps forward. I know her. I hate that I do. Califa. My old mentor. The woman who taught me how to hold a spell steady through pain. The woman who once told me love was a luxury witches can't afford. She smiles. Hello, Rune. A siren is at my back. I feel him move. Protective. Ready. Calitha's eyes flick to him. Oh, there he is. The little prince. I snarl. What do you want? We want what we're owed. You're not owed anything. She raises one eyebrow. A memory spell of that scale. One that rewrote reality, altered time, erased a person from the world. That kind of spell demands balance. I paid. I hiss. I lost everything. No, she says too gently. You delayed payment. Now the payment is due. I feel it before she says it. The cold finality. One of you must die, she says. To balance the spell, one heart traded for one erased. I don't breathe. What? You cast the spell to forget love, to erase pain. You broke a bond older than the ocean. That's a life debt, Rune. And life always demands life. I shake my head. No. No. There's another way. There isn't. Behind me, the siren steps forward. I feel him press one hand on my spine, like he's willing. No! No! I move in front of him again, pulse roaring. You're not taking him. You don't get to choose, Caliphus says. Try me. My magic flares. I can feel it rising again. Wild, raw, threatening to rip me in half. The air bends, the ground cracks, and they vanish. Just like that, gone. But their words remain, their sentence, their threat. Either I die or he does. There's no in between. 1 week later, they came at dusk. Always at dusk. 6 of them, cloaked in night-threaded robes. Stepping from the fog, like shadows that had learned how to walk. They didn't knock, didn't speak at first, just stood there, on the rocks above the sea cave, staring down on us like gods at judgment. I recognize all of them. Old coven members, mentors, brothers. One had taught me to spell braid when I was 10. Another helped me carve my first wand. Now they look at me, like I was something feral, like I was a disease. You broke the pack, one hissed. You undid what was sealed. You let him return. You let him return. Eyes flickering to Lance. They didn't see the man he was now, just echoes of a siren they blamed for everything. You shattered balance, and now we're here to restore it. I should have run. I didn't. I stepped in front of Lance and squared my shoulders. You're not here to restore anything. You're here to finish what you started. You're here to kill him. No, the elder said. We're here to kill you. I breathed in. The sea answered first. Waves climbed higher behind me, as if rising to listen. The wind grew sharp, tugging at my clothes, like hands urging me to remember, to reach. They thought it was just Rune. The quiet one, the boy who forgot, the soft-spoken ward keeper who hadn't cast a high-level spell in decades. But they forgot who I was born to. They forgot the name my mother never let me speak out loud. The bloodline buried so deep, even I stopped looking for it. I am the last-born of the House of Etherian. My breath once stitched constellations, and I have never been theirs to command. I stepped forward. You shouldn't have come. You're outnumbered, someone growled. We made you. You were nothing until we took you in. And yet, here you are, I said. 6 of you and 1 of me. Their magic began to rise, ugly, binding tight. So I stopped holding back. I whispered a name into the wind. Not mine, not theirs. My true name. The one I was born under. The one carved into the bones of the world, long before the coven even existed. And everything snapped. The cliffs split. The runes on my skin, buried for years, lit up one by one. In binding silver, the sky cracked open above me, not with lightning, but light. Old magic, raw and ancient, bled from the stone, the salt, the sea rising through my veins like a second heartbeat. No! One of them gasped. That's not possible. Stop! Stop him! They tried. Their wands burst into flames. Their bindings unraveled mid-air. The youngest one fell to his knees, whispering prayers. I lifted my hand, and the spell shaped itself around me like an old friend. Star-forged words, chanted only once every 1,000 years. I didn't remember them. I became them. And from my mouth poured a sound so old the coven flinched before they even understood it. Heverion, Vestal. The earth trembled. Kethra, Chiron. The winds dropped dead still. Runneth Elhara. Translation: Light of the beginning. Unmake the chains. Return what was stolen. And then, silence. The old spell shattered the air like glass. Magic tore through the coven, through hilltops, through everything. Not to kill, not to destroy, but to undo, to end their power over me. One by one they stepped back terrified. It can't be, the eldest whispered. You're not. I'm not yours, I said. And I wasn't. Not anymore. One turned and ran. Another stumbled after her. Even the bravest among them, the one who taught me fire sigil discipline, his lips tried to form a counterspell, but no words came out. You should go now, I said. None of them argued. Within moments, the cliff was empty, their presence gone like smoke in the wind. The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was full, heavy, with something final. Scared, Lance stepped to my side, hands brushing mine. I didn't turn. I was still glowing, still shaking, but deep in my chest, I felt it. The truth. They wouldn't come back. Not for him, not for me. Not ever again. I had won, and the sea was finally quiet. And then, Lance stumbled, clutching his chest. I turned to him. His lips parted. His voice came back. A few minutes later, I never betrayed you. Those were the first words he said. No hello, no rune, just the truth. I froze. His voice, it sounded like water finally remembering how to flow. Like the wind threading through harp strings, like home. I begged them not to attack, he said, stepping closer. I tried to stall the Sea Council. I took lashes for you. I lied for you. I promised them I'd bring you back. Bring you in, if they let me go to you just once more. I couldn't breathe. I crossed the seas not to fight, he said, but to warn you. That night you saw me at the library. His eyes, he swallowed, his eyes glinting. I wasn't there leading the raid. I was trying to stop it, but someone higher up twisted the plan. Used me as a farce for their fury. They knew if you saw me, if you thought I turned, you'd lose control. I shook my head. But I feel it unraveling in me. Every scream, every broken piece of it all. Built on a lie. And I let the spell happen, he whispered. Because they said, if I resisted, they'd kill you. If I stayed, if I sang the final note, you'd live. My chest cracked open. He stepped closer, breath shaking. I lived without my voice. Without you for years. I would do it again if it meant you were safe. Then he kissed me. Not soft. Wild. And I let him. Hell, I kissed him back with even more intensity. Like after all the years we lost. Ignited at once. Hands in my hair. My fingers gripping his back like I'd drown without him. Mouths crashed together. Teeth, salt. A whimper. Maybe mine. The wind howled. The seas roared. I didn't care. Nothing else existed but his mouth on mine. His hands gripping me like he'd never let go. But then, I saw it. A flash behind my eyes. Not magic, not memory. A man. Watching. Waiting. I jerked back, gasping. Lance blinked, dazed. Rune? I staggered a step away. Breathing, ragged, heart in my throat. I can't! I can't! It was all that came out. Flashback. 7 years ago. The first thing I remember is nothing. Not the kind of nothing that comes from sleep. A deeper kind. Something scraped out. Hollowed. The sky above me was a pale stretch of grey. The kind that doesn't know how to rain yet. The ground beneath me was whetstone. Cold. I was curled in the mud. Ribs aching. Blood dried down to my wrist. No cloak, no shoes. just silence. And I didn't know who I was. No name, no memory. Just a vague sense that something had been ripped from me. A raw ache in my chest, like a phantom limb. Like I'd lost someone, or something, I couldn't say what. I walked for 3 days, maybe more. Through the wet forest, half-starved. I drank from the creek. Slept in the hollows of trees. I followed the sound of birds, thinking maybe they'd lead me somewhere that made sense. It was on the 4th day I collapsed. At the base of the moss-covered ridge, I slipped, fell hard, my ankle twisted. I remembered screaming, not from pain, but from frustration. I couldn't even stand. My hands hit the ground, and I sobbed into the dirt like a child. That's how he found me. Dario. He was passing through with a gathering satchel on his hip, bright red hair pulled into a messy knot. He looked like a warmth dressed in rain-soaked wool. He crouched beside me and asked if I was hurt. His voice was quiet, gentle, like he already knew the answer. I couldn't speak. I was shaking. He didn't press. He wrapped me in his cloak, slid his arms under mine, like I weighed nothing, and carried me up to the ridge to his house, this tucked-away stone cottage, blooming with herbs and soft light. He gave me tea, bandaged my ankle, let me rest. Then a day or two later, when I was a little steadier, he asked, "What should I call you?" I just blinked, and he said almost to himself, "You feel like a rune." And that was it. Rune. I didn't even know who I was, but I became who he said I was, and in some strange, broken way. I was okay with that. Dario's home was small but kind. That was the word for it. Kind. Windows that let in the soft morning light, shelves overflowing with jars and herbs. A little kitchen that always smelled like cloves and something sweet. He never made me feel like a guest or a burden. He just made space. He was a healer by trade. People came far from villages to see him. Children with fevers, farmers with cursed crops, grieving mothers who just needed to sit in his garden for a while. And I helped slowly. The first time he let me hold a knife, I chopped the entire bundle of sage wrong. He laughed. Not crudely, more like amused him, that I'd made perfect symmetrical cuts instead of rough bundle healer use. "You've done this before," he said, narrowing his eyes. "Maybe," I shrugged. "Definitely," he smiled. There were other moments like that. Reflexes my brain didn't recognize, but my body knew. My hands knew how to weave a sleep ward with thread and wax. My mouth remembered the words of a flame-claiming chant. But when I tried to follow the memories back, there was nothing. Dario noticed. He never asked questions. I didn't want to answer. He started reading to me at night. Spellbooks, old journals, even ridiculous tavern poems. "You like that stuff?" I asked one night, eyebrow raised. He smiled, leaned back against the headboard, and said, "I like the way you listen." We never declared anything. No sudden kisses, no dramatic confession. It was slower than that. Softer. I started making double portions of stew. He started buying thicker blankets, because he knew I always ran cold. I'd catch him watching me while I worked, like he was memorizing something he'd already memorized before. One night, when I woke from a nightmare I couldn't name, he was already there, his arms around me, his fingers rubbing gentle circles onto my back. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." He did. He always did. A few years later, it wasn't perfect. I know it looked perfect, from the outside. Warm lights in the windows, a cottage filled with dried flowers and whispered spells, a man I trusted, a life that didn't hurt. But there was something always missing. It started small, a flicker of deja vu when I'd hear ocean waves, a dream that left my hands wet and my chest aching, a song with no melody, but a rhythm that made me cry without knowing why. I'd stare at my own reflection and feel like there's something more to me. Not in a vain way, more like my eyes were trying to remember themselves. Like I'd once been someone else, someone more. I told Dario once about the feeling. He just nodded, pulled me into his lap and kissed my hair. Said, some memories don't come back. Doesn't mean you're any less whole. And I believed him. Because with him I felt safe, loved. Even if I couldn't remember how I ever felt loved. Even if I couldn't remember how I loved before. And maybe I didn't need to. Maybe this was enough. His hand in mine. His quiet smile across the table. His voice in my ear when the nightmares came. Still, sometimes, I'd walk out the back and stare barefoot in the grass, eyes locked on the river, and wonder, why does it feel like someone's still out there waiting? And why does my heart always hurt when I listen too long to the sound of the water? Flashback ends. A few days later, we walked the rest of the way to the cottage in silence. Lance stayed close, not quiet, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel him, like a tide just off the shore. There, steady, waiting. My heart hadn't stopped racing since he told me everything. Since he kissed me like that years hadn't passed. And I let him. I wanted to. But I couldn't stop thinking about Dario. About this place. So I told him everything. What other choice did I have? And so here we are. The place where I spent my forgotten years. The garden gate squeaked, just the same when I pushed it open. The lavender hadn't overgrown. The kitchen window still glowed warm. He was inside. When we stepped in, Dario looked up from the heath, and the second he saw Lance, something changed in his face. The poker clattered to the stone floor. He stared at him, silver eyes, long green tail, long sea green hair still damp from the journey. And then, so quietly, I almost missed it. You found him again. My chest went tight. Dario? But his eyes were still locked on Lance, like something ancient had just stepped into his living room. He stepped back, exhaled hard. Well, he said, so I guess this is it then. What's it? I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me. And I don't know what I expected. Anger? Sadness? Betrayal? But what I saw instead was regret. The kind that eats you from the inside out. You chose him over me. After everything, you still chose him. You know Lance? The words fell out. I wasn't just a healer, Rune. The words dropped like stones. I was there when the spell was cast. I helped cast it. My mouth went dry. What? I didn't know you then, he rushed on. Not really, but after it was done, after the others scattered, someone had to stay, watch you, make sure it held. That you didn't remember. I staggered back a step. Lance reached out, but I flinched before his fingers could find mine. You lied to me, I said quietly. This whole time. I protected you, he snapped. I kept you safe. You used me. He shook his head. Maybe. No. Not at first. Maybe. But then, Rune, I fell in love with you. Not the powerful witch, not the weapon. You. The way you are now. Soft. Still healing. I love the version of you that didn't scream in your sleep. Or call to the sea, like it might swallow you whole. My throat tightened. You knew about Lance? I asked, barely above a whisper. His jaw clenched. Yes. You knew he existed. That he was everything. And you said nothing? He stepped closer. Because I wanted to be everything. He said it like it was a confession. A quiet plea. No shame in it. Just raw, brutal want. I wanted a life with you. I still do. Lance finally spoke, his voice rough, hoarse, but steady. You don't get to choose for him. Dario turned towards him, and you don't get to waltz back in after years. Like the sea can wash away what you left behind. Silence. The kind that hurts your ears. And then, I just said it. You were a part of the spell. He nodded. And you stayed. Not to protect me, but because you didn't want to lose me? He didn't deny it. And gods, that was the worst part. Because I believed him. He loved me. But he also chose to lie. He chose to keep me caged in a life that wasn't really mine. Just so I wouldn't find the one I forgot. I turned away from them both, my head pounding, my heart cracking in my chest. I didn't know what to feel, except maybe I did. Because when Lance stepped up behind me, didn't say a word, just stood there, close enough for my body to remember what my mind still couldn't. It felt like I could breathe again, and that told me everything I needed to know. A few days later, I sat between them, not physically, not really, but emotionally. Somewhere in the ache between, Dario was in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw clenched, watching Lance like he was still deciding whether or not to throw him back into the sea. Lance was still by the window, half-shadowed, the curve in his throat catching gold from the candlelight. He hadn't stopped looking at me since we got back. I couldn't look at either of them. My hands trembled in my lap. I don't know what you want me to say, I whispered. You don't have to say anything, Dario muttered. You said enough. Lance didn't speak. He just stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Like I might bolt. And maybe I would have. If I had anywhere left to run. I loved you, I said, my voice barely held. Both of you. Dario's expression broke for a second. Lance's eyes softened. And I still do, I admitted. It was the truth. That was the worst part. I loved Lance like a storm, wild, breathless, impossible to hold. And I loved Dario like a fire, warm, quiet, something you built a life around. And I didn't know who I was with either of them anymore. That night, I dreamed of screaming. But it wasn't me. It was the ocean. I woke choking on salt, my magic buried under my skin. Wrong. Wild. Rising too fast. I stumbled out of bed, half-dressed, bare feet slapping against the stone, as I reached the door. Lance was already there, shirtless, soaked, his silver eyes wide, with something like fear. They remember. His rasp catching his throat. The sea. My people. They remembered me. What? I whispered. He nodded, breathing hard. The spell. The one that took me away. It didn't just erase me from you. It erased me from them too. I stepped closer. But now? He looked up at me. It's coming back. All of it. And they're angry, Rune. Furious. I loved a land witch. I disappeared from him. They think I betrayed them. And now, I've come back to you. They think I've done it again. I felt it before I saw it. Magic ripping in the distance, like thunder across water. The wind howling, not from the sky, but from the shore. They're coming, I asked. He nodded. And they want you, I added. No, he whispered. They want you. By morning, the signs were everywhere. Water rising unnaturally fast, animals fleeing the woods, the coven's old sigils repairing the moss, etched into tree bark, like wounds reopening. And I could feel them, all of them, both sides. The coven wanted my power, the sea wanted my blood, and both believed they had some claim to me. Maybe they did, because I was the one who cast the forgetting spell. I was the one who'd broken it. The sea remembered now. The war, the betrayal, the love that had almost broken their kingdom, and I stood right there in the center of it. I didn't know who I was supposed to run to, the man who held me steady, or the one who made my magic sing. All I knew was this. Everyone wanted a piece of me, and if I didn't decide who I was, and what I was willing to fight for, I was going to shatter. Again. 3 days later. The battlefield wasn't a battlefield, just a strip of shore, grey and wet, where the ocean met forest. But they stood like armies. On one side, the sirens, silver-eyed, blue-skinned, fins, slick with salt and fury. They watched me like I was a traitor to the tide, a thing that stole one of their own. On the other, my own coven, or what was left of it, cloaked, cold, hungry for the magic I carried, hungry for the power that ran in my blood, the kind that could end worlds. And I stood in the middle, alone. Lance was beside me, breathing hard, his voice almost fully back now, but he hadn't spoken, not yet, not since that night in the cottage, not since he said, "I never betrayed you," and kissed me like he could survive on it. He reached for my hand, but I couldn't take it. Not yet, because behind me, Dario stepped forward, his hood down, his red hair clung to his wet face, and for the first time, he looked small. Not weak, just real, mortal, so achingly human. "I have a spell," he said quietly. Everyone stilled. "I've been working on it for years. I wasn't supposed to. It was forbidden. But I knew this day would come." I turned to him. "What kind of spell?" He looked at me, then, soft, final, the one that seals everything, all of it. The ocean's wrath, the coven's hunger, the pull of old magic. If I cast it, the war ends. Balance returns. They'll have no reason to fight anymore. I shook my head. "Dario, you and Lance will be free," he said. "No one will chase you. No one will want you. You'll just be." The spell, he smiled. "And you?" I asked, though I already knew. The smile, it didn't reach his eyes. "The spell needs a living anchor," he said. "A willing one. To bind the branch between the land and sea. To offer up a soul, so both sides know. The cost has been paid." "It was never meant to be you," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "But I stayed. I made it worse. And I kept you from remembering. I let myself believe you were mine." "You still love me?" "I still do." His voice cracked. "And because I do, I'm not going to let it go." Lance moved towards him, but Dario lifted a hand. "Don't!" he said. "Let me do this while I still have the choice." He turned to the sirens. "You wanted my blood. This blood." He turned to the coven. "You wanted my seal? This seal?" He turned to me at last. "You wanted peace. This peace." And then he spoke the words. I didn't recognize the language. It was older than anything I'd ever learned. Something bone-deep cosmic. The kind of spell that didn't just move magic. It unwrote it. Light rose from the sea. Darkness lifted from the forest. And Dario, glowing like a sun, caught it in the last flare, smiled at me one final time. "I hope he sings for you again." Then he vanished. Not in fire. Not in wind. Just gone. Like the magic closed gently around the space he left behind. The ocean quieted. The sirens lowered their weapons. The coven stepped back confused. Then afraid. Then gone. Because the spell took everything it needed. A life. A willing one. It bound both sides in ancient law. Magic balanced by sacrifice. Anger stilled by loss. The sea no longer wanted war. The witches no longer dared to seek more. There was nothing left to take. Only what remained. Me, Lance, and the silence that hurt more than any scream. I dropped to my knees on the wet sand, clutching the spot where he stood. And Lance knelt beside me. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Because I knew Dario had loved me in a way I didn't understand until it was too late. The kind of love that never asked to be chosen. Just to be remembered. And gods, I would. Every day. A few years later, the house is small, just 2 rooms. Salt-worn wood and wind-chimed windows that sang when the sea's breeze came through. But it was ours. Built by hand, stone by stone, spell by spell, woven into the walls. Not for power, but for quiet, for peace. I plant herbs outside. Not because I need them, but because how I like the smell in the mornings. Lavender, sage, mint. Lance brings things from the tide sometimes. Bits of seashells, glass, driftwood, shaped like hearts. He never says much, just leaves them by the windowsill, like little offerings. He lives half in the water now, comes and goes with the tide, but he always returns before dark, always finds his way back to me. We don't talk about the war much, or the spell, or the ones we lost. We do visit Dario's grave. It's a stone tucked into the forest, near a stream he liked. It leaved fresh flowers. Lance leaves silence. I think that's what Dario would have wanted. Someone to remember him, and for someone to feel him without needing words. I still dream of him sometimes. Not painfully, just soft, a fire-lit laugh, the brush of a hand, a whisper I can't quite catch. But when I awake, it's always the same. Silver eyes looking down at me, the press of warm skin, the hum of his voice I once tried to erase. Now curled against my throat like a lullaby. Lance never says I told you so. He just holds me, like he's not afraid anymore, like I'm not either. And the world? It's not perfect, but it's better. The coven's quiet now, their power broken. The sea people no longer rage. There's still tension sometimes, whispers and stares. But things are softening slowly. We even have friends now. Some witches, some sirens. A few from somewhere else. People who stop by for tea, to trade stories, to just exist with us. One of them, Thorn, a witch I used to train with, came by last week. Showed up on the porch without warning, grinning like he never ran from a war.
Still can't make tea properly, I see,
he says, sipping from a chipped mug, and wrinkled his nose. We laughed, talked late into the night. The kind conversation where nothing's off limits anymore. And somewhere between tea and twilight, he let it slip.
I'm at a place now. You guys should think of joining too, he said. Havenmore. They're building it for everyone. Witches, shifters, sirens, fae, even mundanes, if they got enough guts. It's real, not just a dream this time. Magic without the politics.
Lance blinked. I leaned forward, and then Thorn shrugged and added far too casually,
I might be seeing a werewolf. Don't look at me like that. He's sweet.
Lance choked on his tea. I blinked. Then we laughed. Really laughed. That kind that fills up the room and stays for a while. Because maybe we weren't the ones who broke the rules. Maybe we were never alone at all. And later that night, when Lance curled up around me in bed, from the damp sea, warm against my spine, I kissed his knuckles and whispered, "We're okay." He hummed against my shoulder. "We're more than okay." And we were. Because love didn't save us, but it gave us the choice. And this time, we chose each other. The end. If you have to choose, would you go back to the love you lost, or stay with the one who never left? Thank you for watching. Subscribe to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. And stay wholesome.